Hey everybody, this is Agritecture here in Sharjah, UAE, and I'm here with Alexander Kappes of Greener Crop. How are you doing, Alex?
Good, how are you?
I'm awesome.
It's
I'm
good
awesome.
to have you here finally.
Yeah, finally. We've been talking for a while, been learning about each other's businesses, and I finally got to see one of the facilities that you're operating here in the UAE. Can you tell us, what's the basics? What does Greener Crop do?
So Greener Crop, essentially, what we set out to do was to enable the deployment of hydroponic farms, right? And when we look at the industry, it's still a fairly young industry that's still very fragmented. And what we saw is that too many customers had too many kind of entry barriers to overcome if they wanted to enter the space. And so what we set out to do is to basically provide a full solution from the design of a greenhouse to basically doing the feasibility studies and understanding what you're getting yourself into, to matching our clients with manufacturers, and then most importantly, operating the farm year in, year out for our customers.
So that's awesome. So you don't only help the customers find the market and choose the equipment, but you also help them operate the farms. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and just try to put your voice towards the camera?
Yeah, for sure.
Because the audio will be better.
So what we essentially do is, we deploy our own farm management team here. And so the idea is that we want to help our customers save costs by not having to replicate certain resources that they would otherwise need. So every farm has a dedicated farm manager, but that farm manager is supported by a team of agricultural engineers that works in the background, analyzing the data that we connect from the sensors, analyzing the yield, analyzing certain procedures, the workflow, and so on, and constantly works on optimizing those processes. And so that team, not only supports them with the operation of the farm, but also at critical elements like supply chain. Where do you get your growing supplies? How do you negotiate better prices for your independent farm? Right? And so we do that on behalf of the clients. We handle logistics of, getting everything that they need in and out. We handle, support with things like maintenance. But the best thing is that we're able to pass significant savings onto the client when it comes to the sourcing of growing supplies, and we can support them with things like research and development, where we take learnings from the different farms that we manage and we're able to implement it with every cycle for every client.
Yeah, it's a huge benefit, especially because a lot of the farmers you work with are new, and they've got so many different challenges to manage, including financing the farm, marketing the product, all this stuff. So you're taking a lot of that weight off of them. And I also like the point about aggregating the data, right? Farmers don't talk to each other as much as they should, especially not new farmers that are doing tech-enabled agriculture like this. So to have that sort of middle ground, or that middleman sort of say, that captures that data, it goes through a couple agricultural engineers, gives them insights, that's a lot of value. So we're in the United Arab Emirates, lots of excitement about food security, lots of announcements, lots of investments happening, but still pretty fragmented, chaotic sector. So I got two questions for you. What's your favorite thing about agriculture in the UAE, and what's your least favorite thing about agriculture in the UAE?
So I guess my favorite thing about the agriculture in the UAE is the abundant amount of sunshine. Right? Plants need a lot of sun, and we have a lot of sun, right? It's hot, but the sun shines around 360 days a year. Obviously in the coastal areas you have issues with humidity, but the further into the country you go, you've got a really, really good climate to grow. And so even with fairly low-tech farms that have to utilize evaporative cooling, we're still able to get the temperatures down by about 15 degrees centigrade, which means that even if it's 45 outside, we have a good growing environment inside for crops like tomatoes, bell peppers, cucumbers, and so on. So that's definitely, one of my favorite things about here. Plus, the openness and the willingness of people to embrace this new technology and contribute.
They'll give it a try.
Absolutely.
Innovative.
I think the biggest challenge, obviously, is where we're located. Right. This is the market where innovation often comes to last. American, European companies will look to gain market share further east in Asia or in North America, Europe, before they start looking at this market here. So right now, there's still a pretty big underrepresentation in terms of the technology available to the market, and a lot of the different manufacturers and suppliers have sales teams out here because they obviously want to gauge the market. But in terms of operational expertise in the market, we're still lacking, and so that's where we're having to bridge a lot of the gap at the moment. When we think that's something that definitely will grow in the next couple of years.
Okay, those exciting opportunities and challenges there in this market. But tell me a bit more about you. How did you get into this? What did you do before? Because I don't think you were a hydroponic grower, since the beginning. So what's that journey? How did you get here?
Yeah, so we grew up in a rural area. I've been super passionate about agriculture all my life, and so I moved to Dubai initially in 2012 with Groupon. I was in charge of setting up and scaling Groupon in the Middle East, and then I worked with Delivery Hero and Rocket Internet. So I was a tech guy, and then I went to work for one of Dubai's largest sovereign wealth funds. And that's where we started looking into, alternative agriculture, more advanced modern agriculture, and that's where we started analyzing the market and we saw the huge potential for it. And it's rare that you see a business opportunity that is, we want to replace $6 billion worth of imports. There is technology available to achieve that, but that implementation is struggling, right, and is lagging. And so that's where we came up with the idea, okay, let's enable that, right? There's a clear solution, there's a clear problem, and usually, it's rare that you find that opportunity kind of untouched, and so that's how we entered the space.
Yeah, very, very exciting what could happen here, and all the pioneers that I meet in the UAE who are attempting it and getting it started. You can hear the irrigation is turning on in this facility. We're in the figs, right? This is the soil-based part of the greenhouse that's growing figs, which is pretty cool, and I think not something you see very often in the US at least. So wrapping things up, what's next for Greener Crop? Because we've spoken, I think you're going to kind of bring a bit of your tech background, your software background into Greener Crop. Can you tell us a little bit about that, or is it too early?
No, I think it's about there, right? So, what was important for us, and especially for me as a newcomer to this industry, was to prove that the concept works. We're growing out here in some of the most difficult growing environments in the world, right? I mean, last summer we actually logged temperatures in the farm in LA and outside of 52.5 degrees centigrade. So that's about 125 Fahrenheit. And those are crazy conditions to grow in. And we've proven over the last 2 years that we can run these farms successfully, that we can achieve the yields that we set out to do, and that we can give our customers the return they're after. And so, now comes the point where we want to start developing a certain amount of scalability, and that's what the tech platform is meant to do. So, we obviously gather a whole lot of data here. We gather a lot of experience and expertise from managing 9 different farms across the UAE, Qatar, and Oman. And we're putting all of that information onto a platform that will basically allow clients to log on, monitor their farming operations, set their own workflows, but also order inventory from us, right? Replenish the inventory, get guidance from us on, which parameters do they need to optimize? How can you make your operations run more smoothly? And so we kind of want to move away a little bit from, the current on-site farm management that we do exclusively to, supporting clients everywhere around the world with a more remote-based farm management solution, where we still use our strengths of the supply chain, our strengths of the data that we gather and analyze, but we don't necessarily need a presence on the ground year-round.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Because as you go more digital, that ability to aggregate and benefit all of your Greener Crop customers can be optimized. So they're all going to get a lot more from that as more data is stored in the cloud and can be accessed to software, and they can see what's happening on their farm. So really, really exciting. Again, start to finish solutions with Greener Crop.
Absolutely.
Thanks for showing us this greenhouse. Really, really fun. It's getting hot. I'm sweating. So we're going to
turn the fans back on.
We got to take a break. We turn the fans off for the sound. But thanks so much, Alex. Really appreciate your time. Check out Greener Crop, you guys.